Do you have that one recipe that instantly makes you feel like the holidays are here? For me, it's this pale gingerbread cookie dough. It's not your typical gingerbread. It has warm spices, a touch of cocoa, and maple syrup for a soft and flavorful dough. Whether you're a seasoned baker or just starting out, this recipe is simple, festive, and perfect for holiday cutouts. Let's get started. First up, the dry ingredients. In a large mixing bowl, I start with 3 cups of all-purpose flour. Next, I add a 1/4 cup of unsweetened cocoa powder, which gives the dough a subtle chocolatey depth. Then, I measure out 3/4 of a teaspoon of baking soda to help the cookies rise just enough. I also add 1/2 teaspoon of salt to balance the sweetness. Now, for the spices, the real stars of the show. I add 1 teaspoon of ground cinnamon, which brings that warm, familiar, all-day flavor. Then comes 1 teaspoon of ground ginger for a little kick in depth. Next, 1/2 teaspoon of nutmeg, adding a soft, nutty undertone. Finally, I sprinkle in a 1/4 teaspoon of ground cloves for that unmistakable, cozy aroma. These spices together are like a warm hug in cookie form. If you're feeling adventurous, a pinch of cardamom or allspice can add a little twist. You can also use a large sifter for this step if you want to feel extra fancy. But honestly, I'm a whisk kind of person. It's faster, less fussy, and let's face it, fewer dishes to clean. Give it all a good whisk or sift until it's fully combined, then set the bowl aside. I promise, this step alone will make your kitchen smell so festive, you might consider skipping candles this year. Quick note, I'm making a double batch because I'm not just filming this recipe, I'm prepping my Christmas cookies for gifting. Curious about how I package my cookies on a budget? Check out my other video. Just a heads up, the ingredient amounts here are for a single batch, so make adjustments if you're doubling like I am. Now for the wet ingredients. Grab a medium-sized bowl and crack 1 large egg into it. Next, pour in 1/2 cup of maple syrup. It's sweet, rich, and brings a unique earthy flavor that really sets these cookies apart. Then, add a teaspoon of vanilla extract for that extra cozy aroma. If you're out of maple syrup, don't panic. Honey works just as beautifully. Give everything a good whisk until it's smooth and fully combined. And there you go, wet ingredients ready to shine. We're officially halfway to cookie heaven. You know, this pale gingerbread cookie dough recipe is a fun twist on the classic gingerbread we all know and love. It's like a little blend of old traditions and new ideas. Gingerbread itself has been around for ages. Seriously, it dates back to medieval Europe, especially places like Germany and Scandinavia. They were the ones who started adding all those cozy spices like cinnamon, ginger, nutmeg, and cloves. But this version, it's got a bit of a modern flair. I swapped in unsweetened cocoa powder and maple syrup, which isn't exactly medieval, but it adds such a rich depth of flavor. The cocoa gives it that subtle, chocolatey vibe, and the maple syrup brings this earthy sweetness that's so perfect for the holidays. It's like a little nod to North America while still keeping that old world charm. And funny story, years ago, I stumbled upon this recipe while browsing at my local library. I wasn't even looking for it, but I found this amazing book called Modern Gingerbread by Sandra Monger. It totally caught my eye, and once I tried the recipe, I was hooked. It's not exactly straight out of an ancient recipe book, but it's inspired by those traditional holiday flavors, and it's just the perfect mix of nostalgia and creativity. Honestly, every time I make it, I feel like I'm putting a fresh spin on something timeless. Now, let's move on to the butter and sugar. I'm using my KitchenAid 7-quart stand mixer for this step. This mixer is a lifesaver when working with thicker cookie doughs like this one, especially since I'm doubling the batch. If you're using a smaller mixer, like a 5-quart tilt head, I'd recommend sticking to a single batch to avoid overloading it. Of course, a hand mixer works too, but be prepared for a bit of an arm workout when the dough starts thickening. In the bowl of my kitchen mixer, I add 3/4 of a cup of softened, unsalted butter. Room temperature butter is your best friend here. It creams so much better and makes the dough light and fluffy. If you didn't have time to soften your butter ahead of time, don't worry. I have a blog post with some quick tips to soften butter faster. Check it out for a time-saving hack. Then I add half a cup of granulated sugar. Want to switch things up? Coconut sugar is a great alternative and adds a hint of caramel flavor. Using the paddle attachment, I start mixing on low speed to avoid a sugar explosion, then gradually increase to medium. After 2 to 3 minutes, the butter and sugar are perfectly creamed. Don't skip this step. It's the foundation of your dough's texture and flavor. And don't forget to scrape down the sides of the bowl with a silicone spatula. You'd be amazed how much likes to hide up there. Once the butter and sugar are ready, it's time to add the wet ingredients. Slowly pour in the egg and maple syrup mixture and mix on medium speed until fully incorporated. The moment those warm spices and maple syrup blend into the butter and sugar, it's magic. Your kitchen transforms into a cozy December bakery, and you'll want to pause just to take it all in. Trust me, this is the kind of aroma that makes baking worth every step. Let's enjoy the process. This is why we bake. Now comes the dry ingredients. Gradually add them to the mixer, about a third at a time. Keep the mixer on the lowest setting and take it slow. This dough gets thick, and we don't want to overwork the mixer. If you're using a hand mixer, this is where you'll get your workout in. After each addition, mix just until combined. If the dough starts climbing up the paddle, stop the mixer and scrape it down. The goal is a smooth, slightly firm dough that holds together beautifully without being sticky. To test the consistency, pinch a small amount of dough between your fingers. It should hold its shape without crumbling or sticking too much. If it's too dry, add a teaspoon of milk at a time and mix gently. If it's too sticky, sprinkle in a bit of flour and mix just until it feels balanced. When it's ready, you'll know. It'll feel just right, like the perfect dough you can't wait to roll out. I hope you're having as much fun making this pale gingerbread cookie dough as I am. If this recipe is adding some holiday cheer to your kitchen, don't forget to hit like, subscribe, and tap that bell so you'll always be in the loop for more festive recipes. Do you have a gingerbread recipe that holds a special place in your holiday traditions? Maybe it's a unique flavor twist or a family favorite passed down through the years. I'd love to hear about it. Share your stories or tips in the comments below. Let's keep the gingerbread magic alive together. Here on my channel, I mix my love of food photography and baking to create recipes that bring joy to your table. From snapping the perfect cookie shot to crafting festive treats, my goal is to inspire you to make something amazing. Thanks for joining me on this cozy holiday baking adventure. Now, let's roll out that dough and bake up some holiday magic. Freeing the paddle attachment from thick dough can feel like a showdown with a sticky monster. But don't worry, you've got this. Just like I shared in my classic gingerbread recipe, grab a trusty silicone spatula and start scraping around the edges of the paddle. Work your way from the bottom up, gently coaxing the dough off. Rotate the paddle as you go to make sure no sneaky bits are left behind. If it's extra stubborn, a little twist of the paddle can do wonders. And let's be real, this keeps your hands clean and saves every last bit of that delicious dough. Because wasting it? Not on my watch. Now it's time to divide the dough. Normally, a single batch makes 2 or 3 portions, but since I'm doubling the recipe for holiday gifting, I'll end up with 4 or 5 discs. Here's my little trick. I start by placing a sheet of food wrap on the counter, making sure it's ready to go. Then, using a silicone spatula, I scoop a portion of dough onto the wrap. Instead of shaping it right away, I loosely wrap the dough first to avoid sticky hands. Because who needs extra cleanup? Once it's wrapped, I press it gently into a flat, round disc. This method keeps everything neat and saves your sanity. After each disc is shaped, I stack them neatly in the fridge to chill. They'll need at least an hour to firm up, which makes rolling and cutting a breeze. Planning ahead, these dough discs freeze beautifully. Pop them into a labeled freezer bag with the date and Pale Gingerbread Cookies Dough written on it using a black Sharpie. Trust me, labeling is a lifesaver, especially when your freezer looks like a cookie dough treasure chest. It's not just about organization. It ensures you grab the right batch when you're ready to bake. Because let's face it, the last thing you need during holiday prep is grabbing chocolate dough when you wanted classic gingerbread. The discs will stay fresh for up to 3 months, so you're always prepared for a cookie emergency or a holiday baking marathon. Honestly, this is my little secret weapon for surviving the chaos of holiday baking. If you're curious about how I manage it all without losing my mind, I explain the full strategy in another video. While the dough is chilling, let's talk about what you can do with it. This pale gingerbread cookie dough is a dream for cutouts. Stars, hearts, snowflakes, you name it. My daughter loves helping me pick out the shapes, and over the years, we've made everything from pandas to ice skates. These cookies hold their shape so well, you don't have to worry about them spreading into blobs in the oven. But if you're a little worried about spreading, here's a tip. Add a tablespoon of cornstarch to your dry ingredients. It works wonders for stabilizing the dough and helps the cookies keep their sharp, clean edges while baking. Cornstarch also gives the cookies a slightly softer texture, making them even more irresistible. And decorating. That's the best part. Royal icing is my go-to. But you can also add sprinkles or even turn them into sandwich cookies with a cream cheese or chocolate ganache filling. The possibilities are endless, and there you have it. Our pale gingerbread cookie dough ready to roll out and bake. Whether you're making these for a holiday party, gifting them to friends and family, or just enjoying them with a cup of tea, this recipe is guaranteed to bring a little extra joy to your holidays. Don't forget to check out my gingerbread playlist for more creative flavors and ideas. And if you're curious about another holiday favorite, watch my next video on classic gingerbread cookie dough. It's a recipe you won't want to miss. Thanks for baking with me today, and happy holidays.